How's it going? I'm UG here, and Dragonflight is so close. So before it comes out, I wanted to make a video about some of my favorite builds on beta right now. These are the things that I've had the most success with in Solo Shuffle. So the first one is that big tick one-shot build. Everyone's favorite rep build, the one that just does the most damage ever, and this is what I think will end up being the best for Solo Shuffle at least. But it's really good, it gives you a ton of solo kill pressure, you don't have to rely on your teams as much, it's just really strong. So here's the build. So I'm going to talk about it just section by section. So in the lower section, you can go into Turn Evil and Cleanse Toxins if you need to. If you want to drop something to get Cleanse Toxins and Turn Evil, you can drop Seasoned Warhorse. I don't think it's really that good. Then if you want to have neither of them, you can go into Holy Aegis just for the extra crit chance. It can be kind of helpful sometimes. Then into the middle section, I'm kind of trolling. You do not want Improved Bop in Solo Shuffle at least. You want to go into Touch of Light, which is also kind of useless, but it makes it so that you can get down to this path. You just are never going to get your second Bop up in a Solo Shuffle game because they're never going to be 4 minutes long. Dampening ramps up way too fast. And then on the other side, you can go into the sack talents if you know that a certain person is getting trained a ton, but a lot of the time, Ret is the kill target just because it's so much squishier than most other DPS specs, and it has a hard time getting away. It's just a really good target to train. But if they are going different target, you can go into Sacrifice of the Just or Recompense. Both of them are actually pretty good. Then for the bottom, I went down to Seal of Order. Seal of Order is just my favorite talent ever. It just adds a lot of depth to our rotation at least, since we got to maintain that buff. Going from 5 holy power to 0 holy power, just trying to keep them up as much as possible. And it also gives you quite a bit in return, giving you 10% increased damage on all of your holy power spenders. So that's 10% increased Templar damage, which is pretty big. And then on the middle tree, I get Seraphim, because Seraphim is just really good for that one shot. Sure, you're playing the Seraphim procs, but it's not as reliable as just straight up having the ability and just having it when you're actually bursting. It's just really good. I'm not going the haste because we're just trying to get the biggest dam possible in the smallest amount of time. The haste doesn't really add too much. It's really nice to have, but I just don't think that it's worth it for this build. You'd much rather have the chance to have 6% increased holy damage onto a target, because it just adds up with a lot of your other modifiers. Next up on the right side, the only big things is, you want to get things that adds Templar damage, like Righteous Verdict. Then you also want to get Hylar's Judgment because it adds a ton of damage to your Divine Toll. Holy Crusader is also really good since it gives you 2% mastery, which is pretty much just 2% damage. Then on the right side, you want Zeal, because Zeal is actually really good because it makes it so that you proc your Ashes to Ashes a lot more often, which makes it so that you get potential Wake of Ashes resets and also Seraphim procs, which just gives you a lot more damage. For healing in Solo Shuffle, I think Selfless Healer is actually better. WoG just does not heal us enough, and you will never get the second lay on hands in a Solo Shuffle. But in actual ranked 3s, I think Healing Hands is going to be way better. Now, I don't have Eye for an Eye. You can go into Eye for an Eye by dropping either Righteous Verdict or Hylar's Judgment, and then putting that point into Eye for an Eye, just depending on what you're playing against, what you think is better. I personally think that you should drop Righteous Verdict before you drop Hylar's Judgment, just because I don't think Righteous Verdict is that good, especially if you're playing against something that is able to kite you quite well, or that you're going to end up having to heal against. And now for the bottom, we want to get into Final Verdict because it adds a lot of damage to our Templars. And then the most important thing is Final Reckoning. Final Reckoning does a ton of damage. It makes it so that your damage is increased by quite a bit. And it's just kind of a necessity for the big giant one-shot ret build. Then you're going to want to go into Empyrean Legacy. It makes it so that when you use Judgment, every 30 seconds you get a little buff that makes it so that your next Templars also cast Divine Storm. This adds a lot to our burst window, since it can hit up to 50 to 60k at times, sometimes even more. So having that just feels way better than the other option that you would have, which is Divine Resonance. Divine Toll hits super hard, and it's also just kind of a holy power battery, so you use it, you end up getting at least enough for another Templars. But adding it with the Divine Resonance is really good, but not so much for this build, because you're trying to be doing as much damage in a small window of time. Waiting 5 seconds for another Judgment just isn't worth it. Then for PvP talents, I'm just been trolling Solo Shuffle and not playing Sank because I don't really care enough. But you'd probably just drop Luminescence for Sank. You can also go into Vengeance Aura, into certain teams because that adds a lot of crit damage, making so that your one shot is way more consistent. Then you obviously need Orb Reckoning. It just makes it that you get a Wings proc pretty consistently. Depending on certain columns, you can get it like almost every 30 seconds. But if you can line up your second burst with one of these, it just instantly wins you the game almost. And then I think Unbound Freedom is almost a necessity now. It gives you so much free mobility, and also if you're playing with another melee, it gives them a ton of mobility also, since you can use it on an ally as well as yourself. And the speed boost is also really nice, especially because you cannot get purge on it. So yeah, that's about it for the Big Dick one-shot build. So next up, let's talk about the more standard consistent damage build, which is this. So the big thing on the Paladin side is we are getting Sanctified Wrath instead of Seraphim. It just adds a lot more consistent damage, and also the increased wings is pretty helpful. Also, we are getting the haste buff, because if we're trying to consistently do damage, using more globals is way more efficient than getting the extra 5% increased damage every once in a while. So I just think it's way better, especially because I like to go more of hasty gear when playing this build. And now the Rets side is quite a bit different. So first off, I am not running Righteous Verdict because I think it's not that good. It's just kind of fun with the cheesy, it's just kind of fun with the big one shot. The potential 5% increased damage can be kind of helpful. But instead, I'm deciding to go for the Blade of Justice build. It just adds a lot of damage to your general rotation, which can be really helpful. And then I'm not running Eye for an Eye in this build because, you know, it's just, if you're playing its melee and you feel like you need it, you can go it. If you want to go for it, you can drop either 1 point into Zeal, or you can 1 point of Sealed Verdict and put it into Eye for an Eye. You could also maybe drop a point of Sealed Verdict and go into Tempest of Lightbringer if you're playing against a melee team and you're trying to cleave a lot more. It can be quite a bit of extra damage. Then for healing, we already talked about it. Just do whatever you think is better, but I think that Healing Hands is going to be better in 3s, and then in Solo Shuffle, Selfless Healer is going to be better. And now in the bottom half, I changed quite a bit. First of all, we are going into Relentless Inquisitor. This thing gives you so much haste, it's actually insane. It gives you like almost 10% bonus haste, which makes it so that your globals come out so fast, and it's really nice to play. Also, we're going into the Divine Resonance, since this gives us quite a bit of extra consistent damage during our burst, with the extra judgments, especially because it's empowered by Greater Judgment, making so that our Holy Power spanners are even stronger. Then I still like to go Imperial Legacy. It's just a fun ability in my opinion, and it does really good damage. And then I'm also going into Final Verdict. I think it's worth running if you're trying to go for more of a Templars build. Yeah, that's kind of it for this build. I kind of enjoy this build more than the bursty one-shot build because it feels like I can do more outside of my burst go, but I don't think it's quite as good right now, especially in an unstructured kind of game. But playing something like Ret War or some other melee cleave, it can be way better than the big one-shot build. Next up, we have probably one of the best builds for Ret Paladin, but I don't really like it. It's the Justiciars Vengeance build. So the left side is completely the same as the last build, but the right side, you want to get rid of anything that buffs Templar's Verdict. So no Righteous Verdict, no Final Verdict, no Templar's Vindication, and instead you're going to want to go into Justiciars Vengeance. Justiciars Vengeance does quite a bit of damage right now. It does more than Templar's Verdict does without being Final Verdict, and also does 50% increased damage during stuns, but it feels like it doesn't hit as hard whenever I play it. I can hit well over 100k on Templar's Verdict, but I've never seen anything bigger than like 88k for Justiciars Vengeance, even during a stun, so I'm not really sure. But yeah, it's pretty much the exact same, but you drop some of the Blade of Justice talents. Honestly, you don't need Expurgation either. You'd probably want to go something like Inner Grace, even though I think it's really bad. But just getting extra holy power can be kind of nice. I do a Final Reckoning still. Some people go Execution Sense, but I think Execution Sense is terrible. It has been since they reworked it. You don't want to go into Imperial Legacy because that makes it so that you have to press Templar's Verdict, and we're just never pressing Templar's Verdict as this builder. Yeah, other than that, it's pretty much the same as consistent build, but we have a bit more burst because we also can go into Final Rec without really losing anything. So yeah, that's it for this build. Next is the second to last build, which I've been messing around with into melee comps, is the Big Cleave build. So it's pretty much the same as a consistent build, except once again, nothing into Templars. We also don't put anything into Final Rec. Instead, we're going more into Exorcism. We're also buffing it for our Consecration, and we're going Consecrated Blades. We're just trying to do the most cleave ever. Also, we're going Consecrated Grounds instead of our Hand of Hindrance, because we'll have a more consistent slow technically, because we'll just have Consecrations down all the time, especially when we also have Consecrated Blades. The only thing is this build only really works against melee cleaves that are going to be getting hit by consistently. If you're not able to hit 2 targets with your cleave consistently, this build is not good. That's all I can really say. It does really well, especially when you have Lawbringer. Lawbringer causes a lot of cleave, especially when you pair it with Divine Toll. You get the extra judgment every 5 seconds, which just rots down the entire team. And then we also got the AoE judgments with Boundless Judgment, and it does quite a bit of damage, and I think it's actually really fun. But, you know, it's not the best and very situational. And now we have one last build. This is the memeiest of them all, and it's my favorite ability in the game, Crusade. Now, I swear this might actually be the best ret build in the game right now. I've been testing it out a lot, and it's just been doing super well. Now, Crusade is so fun. It replaces your wings and turns it into kind of a stacking buff, and once it gets fully maxed out, it does a ton of damage. It buffs you by 30%, also gives you 30% increased haste. So with this build, you want to pretty much play the exact same consistent build, just go Crusade. Also, we're dropping Sanctified Wrath because it doesn't really pair too well with Crusade, and instead going down the Zealot's Paragon path. This will make it so that we can extend the duration of our Crusade by quite a bit. Also, one important thing is you want to put 1 point into Vanguard's momentum, since it gives you the extra charge of Hammer of Wrath. I think this build is really fun. It's not really that good into comps that you are going to get kited a lot, but if you play into something that you can consistently stick on and is kind of tanky, this absolutely shreds them. So I definitely recommend trying this build from time to time. I think it's insane. But yeah, that's it for me. That is all the builds that I have tried so far in the Dragonflight beta. I hope this helped. I think that a lot of these are at least really good starting points for if you're kind of learning the specs or trying to figure out what you want to do. Just look back here. Try some of these builds. Some different builds are going to be better for different comps. I'll probably talk about that later in the future once I get kind of a better idea of the meta and how things work. But yeah, that's all from me. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.